This is the Charity Trustees meeting in respect of the Our Last charity. A special welcome to Michelle Phoenix, Audit Manager for Audit Wales today, and to Paul Matthias, Investment Manager from Brewin Dolphin. Paul joins us to observe the meeting, and Michelle is here to take questions on the audit. Thanks both again for being here. Thank you all for joining us today for the annual general meeting of the Board of Trustees of Our Last, which, as I've just said, is the Health Board's charity. The main purpose of today's meeting is to formally ratify the charity's annual report and accounts. As most of you will know, the Health Board is the corporate trustee, the single trustee of the charity. We, the board, act as the Board of Trustees of the charity, and we have established a charitable funds committee for the purpose of making and monitoring arrangements for the control and management of the charity and the use of the charity's funds. I'd like to take this opportunity, therefore, to thank Jackie, who chairs the CFC, and its members for all that's been done over the last year to oversee the charity. I will be inviting Jackie to say a few words in a moment once I deal with the preliminaries in terms of the agenda. In that regard, we will record any apologies, and I turn now to the minutes and the actions. Are you happy with the accuracy of the minutes from last time? Yeah. Okay, there was one action outstanding, I think, recorded in the minutes. Kirsty, that related to sharing the strategy. I know you did that. That would appear to me to be the only action that we need to review. And you're nodding.
Yes, that was shared, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll come to you, Jackie, then, if I may, by way of further introduction on behalf of the committee.
Mark. I have got some thank yous to say, but the first thing I want to say is to apologise for the delay in getting the papers to you today. You'll realise that we're kind of beholden to Audit Wales's work, who act as the Auditor General for Wales and independent examiner of Welsh NHS charities made in Section 150 of the Charities Act. And we have to work to their timescales. So unfortunately, we couldn't quite get there quickly enough this year. There were a couple of issues that came up at the very last moment which needed dealing with. Fortunately, we managed to agree these yesterday, hence the very late provision of the papers. Both Steve and Kirsty will make some further comment about that later. I would like to say thank you to Kirsty and her team, and to Helen and her team, and to everybody within the finance team. For all the hard work they've done. And I know the finance team have been particularly pressed in the last probably 2-3 weeks. So thank you very much for all that you've done. And to all of our fundraisers, our fund managers within the Health Board, and everybody else who supports the charity, including our external stakeholders. So that's it from me, really. And I'll hand you over to Steve in terms of the annual accounts for ratification. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Steve, can I come to you then, please?
Yeah. I mean, just very briefly, the late change was basically to improve the accounts by 12,000. So it was a relatively small change, and it was in the right direction, but the work needed to be done. So apologies again for that. I mean, just in summary, and a really high level summary, the charity's income for the year was 2.8 and the expenditure was 1.4, and we had a gain on investments of 0.3, which gives a total increase in funds during the year of 1.7 million, which is very positive. The two key aspects of that we talked about in the Charitable Funds Committee is that we did very well on legacies this year, so that there was an element of abnormality about it, fortunate abnormality, but not necessarily ongoing, and that was largely in the specific funds rather than the the sort of general funds that can be used for a wider variety of things. So it was concentrated there, but our total increase in funds have gone up by 2.8 million. So that's very welcome. I just give that very brief summary, Mark. We got the accounts audit. I presume we're going to just hear briefly from Audit Wells, from Michelle, but that was an unqualified audit opinion. There were some uncorrected errors in there. There were some corrected errors that are in that overall position, but that work was completed well. So I think that's all I wanted to say, really.
Okay, so before I come to Michelle, Kirsty, is there anything you wanted to add from an accounts perspective?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Jackie?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Thanks, Steve. So Michelle, can I come to you, please, now, in terms of the audit?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we have now completed our audit, and on receipt of your signed letter of representation, we intend to issue an unqualified audit opinion. As Steve mentioned, there have been some corrected misstatements in the accounts, and these are noted in Appendix 3 of our report, but there are no uncorrected misstatements. So yes, I'm very happy to take any questions, but can I take this opportunity to thank the finance team for all their help and Kirsty for all their help during the audit. It was much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Steve. So any questions or observations from anybody in the meeting? No? Okay, so are we happy to note the audit findings and the opinion just given by Michelle, and also approve the accounts?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks both. And thanks, Michelle, for coming along. So I'm now going to take us, Kirsty, to the review of the annual report, which we're also being asked to approve too, please.
Super. Before we do that, Chair, Steve, did you want to add anything, or would you like to come back in later?
No, I can come in later. You thinking about the issue around general funds? We can pick that up. Maybe you talk about the annual report first, I think.
That's super. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen, if I may. And you should be able to see, sorry, I moved this. I'm just going to go down. I've just got a very brief presentation which goes beyond the annual report, because I know that we've got limited time. So actually, I'll stop sharing and I'll just speak instead, if that's all right. Steve's explained a little bit about the financial information, obviously, and you've I know not had much time to review the report, but really I just wanted to touch on the impact of the charity and those who have supported it. I do encourage you to read the stories of the fundraisers and those who've donated that's included in the annual report, and to also take a look when you can on social media. At the moment, Amy, my colleague who joins us on the call, is sharing more stories of donations that we received from this year and the impact that they have had since then, about 3 times a week. So it's always worth having a look at the Arilar social media and also on BetsyNet. And my thanks go to the communications team who help us with sharing those stories, both internally and externally. The most significant points that I wanted to raise, which are touched upon in the report, but just to give a bit more of an overview of the year, what we really found was that during the year of 2021-22, we continued to move towards using more or focusing more on our digital activity. So we had a number of fundraisers take part in our 1 Million Steps programme. That included both staff and patients, and saw people walking for 10,000 steps a day for 100 days. And that went on to raise over £5,000, but was really useful tool to increase our engagement and also to raise some really important public health and well-being messages. We also had our Light Up Christmas event, which we did discuss briefly this time last year, following the huge success that it was, which again encouraged people to donate digitally. And we saw really a change in how we engage with potential donors due to obvious reasons. We had less fundraising leaflets going out to people in our hospitals and elsewhere, and we focus more on having social posts on our, sponsored posts on our social media. What we saw throughout the year, which is reflected in the document that we've produced, was the passion of colleagues, despite challenging times that year, was clear throughout the year. It was the year in which a retiring, long-standing member of staff decided to create a Kindness and Empathy Award to help celebrate colleagues moving forward. And a team in Wrexham Myla decided to take on a challenge to walk around the world together, again virtually, but something that they did to help raise money for their ward, but also to do something that they could all feel like they were part of a team doing. What we also saw, and you could see this in the story about the bin men over the Christmas period who decided to raise money for our services, we really saw that people across our communities really wanted to still support their local communities. The previous year, we'd seen an outpouring of support, but that very much continued into 2021. And whilst the average donation that we saw coming in from people and from community groups was slightly smaller that year, what we did find was that more people were getting involved. In moving forward, we'd like to harness this community support by developing groups, volunteer groups that can be managed, that can support managed practices and other community services as well, so that we can see the support that we have from people and from organisations across the community within our district general hospitals extend much more for our community services and across our community hospitals much more as well. In comparison to previous years, what we decided in 2021-22 was that the learning from previous years really meant that we wanted to take stock of some of what we were doing, focus on the systems and processes that we have in place. And so that we therefore took a decision to stop carrying out some of the activity that we'd been carrying out in previous years. And so that saw us postpone our Light Up Christmas in last year, 2022, so that we could focus on really looking at our different policies that we wanted to be changing as we move forward. And as part of that work, we worked with USC Consultants and also Fundraising Training Limited, who both helped us with our strategy development and also some fundraising feasibility work throughout last year. We've also been providing different support for our third sector partners over the past year, which has focused on working with colleagues to ensure that risk assessments, service agreements and tenancy at will agreements are in place so that we can reopen our cafes and our shops that are run by our third sector partners across our different hospitals. In terms of plans for beyond, you'll have seen that we refer to this within the report. I said that we've worked with consultancies throughout 2022, and we referred earlier to the strategy that we presented to the Charitable Funds Committee at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. We have looked again at that. The financial position for the charity has changed, which Steve will talk about shortly. So we're actually looking again at our strategy, and that will finally be presented again to the Charitable Funds Committee in June this year, once we've done some further work on the finance strategy that underpins the whole charity strategy. Moving forward this year, our focus is very much on the 75th anniversary of the NHS, and we're also working with colleagues within the Health Board on looking at our volunteering and what we can do to potentially expand, but certainly make our volunteering even more effective than it already is across the Health Board. So I've shortened that slightly because I know that Steve is keen to speak as well, and it would be great to get some questions from you all. But just wanted to finish by saying a huge thank you to all of you on the call for all the support that you've given to some of our supporters through the year, to our charitable partners, leagues of friends across the Health Board, and also of course to our team. So thank you, special thanks obviously to Jackie as chair. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Kirsty. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, if there are any questions, I wouldn't want to detract from last year. What I've got to say is, it just in the context of the role of the trustee, the trustees, and wanting to make you aware of some developments this year. But could we just check there are no sort of questions on last year, and try and separate this year and last year?
Yeah. Okay. So let's good suggestion. Let's go with that then. Are there any questions about 21, 22? No hands raised. Are colleagues therefore happy to approve the annual report for 21, 22? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Right. So we'll then move to the look ahead then, Steve, on the back of what Kirsty's already just said, please.
Yeah, no, well, this is really just to say, can you see me? I can't see my picture, but hopefully it's there.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So what has happened in the current year is that after investment values continuing to climb, modestly, they've taken a big dip, as we know, in the current year, and particularly in the first half of the year. So it's recovering a little bit since the first half of the year, but in the first half of the year, the investment loss, in line with investment values generally, was around 1.2 million. Now that has, together with other commitments coming from general funds, has moved the general fund, as at the end of September, it's better since, to be around 700,000 or 800,000 in deficit. Now this is a sort of concern for us in two ways, really. One is we need to have a route out of the general fund being in deficit, but also we want it to be in healthy surplus, because I think, as Jackie has said quite a bit recently, we absolutely want to use the general fund to support areas of the health board and services that struggle to raise their own funds, because they're not as sort of, don't have the same public profile as cancer or NICU or areas like that. So that's led us to looking at some of the sort of policies and processes that we have within the charity that is contributing alongside the investment drop into this position with on general funds. And it's really around how we allocate investment gains, and we don't have a buffer at the moment before we allocate them out, and all investment losses fall on the general fund, and the general fund is also paying for all the fundraising team and fundraising and charity administration generally. So there's a lot falling on the general fund that could be handled in different ways, and is handled in different ways in other NHS charities. So there's quite a bit for us to have a look at, to one, get the general fund heading back over time, won't be immediately, into a surplus position, but also put it into a healthy, sustainable place so it can fulfill its role, if you like, within the charity. So discussion we've had, and we're all behind this on the Charitable Funds Committee, is that we need to do this piece of work sort of up front and then move on to some of the, the other aspects that we want to look at, such as staff lottery. So because it is not a hugely concerning thing, but it is something that we need to address and sort going forward, then given we've got a meeting of the trustees here and now, we felt we ought to just share that position with you. It's nothing to do with last year, it's solely this year and due to the investment falls, but there are some underlying structural issues that we need to change, I think. So that was it, Chair, really.
Okay, and the examination of our strategy moving forward, Steve, will presumably occur in conjunction with our financial advisors.
Yeah, no, that will be linked into that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or observations about what Steve has just said? Jackie.
I think I just wanted to add, Mark, that we've restructured completely the agenda for the next Charitable Funds Committee. So it will look very different to what it normally does, so that we can address the points that Steve's just raised and make sure that going forwards we are doing the right thing. So it will focus on this particular issue for a large part of the agenda. And anybody who wants to join to come to the committee, I was going to say join, but that would have been the wrong word, is more than welcome to attend.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure you will, but perhaps through the Chair's assurance report or via what other means you feel suitable, Jackie and Steve, you keep us updated on that financial strategy point, please. Thank you. So the date of the next meeting I've got is recorded as the 25th of January next year. So are there any other matters not on the agenda that you feel we need to cover, Jackie or Kirsty or Steve? No?
No, thank you.
So can I repeat what I said at the start and which others have said and express my thanks to you, Jackie, as chair of the committee, members of the committee, including Kirsty and your team members, Kirsty, some of whom are with us. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And please carry on the good work. John, your hand has gone up as I was closing the meeting.
Yeah, so sorry, Mark, it was just a quickie. You referenced that the next meeting would be January next year. Just to highlight as one of the governance issues, there is a likelihood that the trustees will have more than the one annual meeting. So it was just to flag that up as a governance issue going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much.
Mark, can I clarify that, please? We will only have one AGM, which is what this is. We will have other trustees meetings, which is what I think you mean, John, as opposed to one annual meeting.
Yeah, sorry, okay.
Okay, and Molly's agreed with that as well. Okay, thanks both. Okay, I'll close the meeting there then. Thanks everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Mark.